out my video here on my channel. I do appreciate it. I thought I'd put together a little slideshow of some of my artwork. I do vintage pieces, generally speaking, cars from the 60s and 70s. I like to do little postcards or paintings. Sometimes I'll even do the occasional mural. Just a fun little hobby I've got. I've been doing it for about 10 years. I do work in the trade. I am a service writer at one of the dealerships, and I predominantly work around the domestic product. And I thought I'd go over at least my thoughts on Bill 72, and it was rejected, and that would have been the right for you to repair your car, and intellectual property and ownership rights as it relates to the component you bought, your vehicle. It's one of those things that when you look at it on the face of it, you don't really think about it when you're buying the car or truck initially. You don't think, okay, well, I'm going to own this thing. Maybe you'll want to pull a wrench out at some point, put a set of mud flaps on, or do a software update. You're not really meant to do that anymore. You're seeing a lot of manufacturing becoming patent pending or patent in place, and they've built the vehicle around the idea that you need to go to a certified technician to have it serviced or even worked on, to the point where they're even making specialty pieces like fasteners and screws where you need to have the proprietary tool to actually get into the component to actually get access to do the work. Now, this used to be 10 years ago a problem when you were at the parts desk and you said, okay, well, I want to do a set of brakes, and you need a special little attachment for your wrench to be able to pull the pads off. And you'd kind of grudgingly go, okay, well, I'll buy the $7, Torx and we'll go ahead and do it. Thank you, Audi, Volkswagen. They're along that line. GM had a funny little thing with a little square with two little dots on it. It looked like a Rubik's Cube. They had that in their car for a little while, too. So again, this is not new. It's something that manufacturers have been trying to work in for a while, and you're seeing it more in the technology-based items. You can't really crack open your iPhone and start servicing it. You really can't crack open your laptop and start servicing it. And the automotive industry has looked at those segments and said, okay, well, that's where their profit source is from. Now you chuck the component out and you buy a new one. And so there's very little old school technicians or even backyard mechanics now that are prepared to crack open a module and try and resolder it, or find the chip or find the relay that's not working. Normally it's a component replacement. And we're going to see that that's going to get a little worse as things kind of move along. And it's not really a surprise. Now, if you look at things like agriculture, and you look at John Deere is a good example. If you Google that, they've got a ton of proprietary-based software-related items, component-related items, and they've made it almost a captive market, to the point where if you do run their equipment in agriculture, you're going to have some issues as far as getting that thing repaired 10 years down the road or 15 years down the road, because their life expectancy on that unit isn't meant to be that long. So your secondary user, in other words, you've gone out and bought it brand new, run it through the warranty, maybe you keep it for a year or two, afterwards you sell it off. Well, that secondary user, that used car market guy, is going to have some issues in the future when it comes to things like doing an update. He's got to bring it back to the dealership. Doing certain work on the vehicle, going to have some issues with it. And it's going to get worse. And that's just the nature of it, unfortunately. And you look at things like Tesla is a pretty good example. They're very close when it comes to doing work on your vehicle. You can't just take it to any old technician in the middle of Saskatchewan and start working away on it. Mainly because that local technician, even though he's qualified to work on a car, isn't necessarily qualified to work on a Tesla. And it's going to filter down to the other brands as well. And that's going to be the nature of it, unfortunately. And when you're doing the backyard stuff and you're doing your own repairs, you're going to not have access to things like what would be an OB2 code reader. That won't be available to the general guy anymore. Going out and trying to buy a repair book or specs becoming increasingly difficult. You're not seeing a lot of Haynes manuals out there anymore, and you're kind of limited to what you can do. Now, what you're going to find is